Genesis chapter 9. We're going to read verses 18 through 27. Tonight's message is entitled Noah's Fall and Prophecy. The sons of Noah went forth from the ark. They were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, I got to tell y'all a story real quick. I got to tell y'all this story. And it's a funny story. Was it Andy or Edie?
Andy.
So, my middle child was a little child, Andy. I don't know how old she was. She was maybe only about 6, maybe 5. And we were talking about this story. And I asked the question to Andy. I said, Andy, do you know what the name of Noah's sons were? And she looked at me kind of confused. And so I wanted to give her some help. And I think Caden may have actually started. I said, hang on, Caden, let Andy answer this. And I said, so it's Ham, Shem, and she goes, damn, just like that. And we erupted laughing. We were like, what? And she was 6. She didn't know that was a word. All she did was think of a letter that rhymed with Ham and Shem, and that's what came out of her mouth. I just want to let you know the third son is Japheth. All right? Not damn, it's Japheth. So please, don't go home tonight being confused about the names like my 6-year-old daughter was. Ham, Shem, Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These 3 were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Now listen, Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk, and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, walked backwards, and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were turned backwards, so they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew that what his youngest son had done, he said this prophecy, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. And he also said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. The first thing, by the way, our text is broken up into 3 basic parts. All right? It is the fall of Noah, the sin of Shem, and Noah's prophecy. Okay? So first, let's deal with the fall of Noah. So, God delivers Noah and his entire family from the flood of his judgment. He makes a covenant with Noah and his family, promising certain things to them. He makes a covenant promising, I will never pour out my wrath on mankind ever again in the way that I just have. Now, you would think that after Noah had gone through such a miraculous deliverance of God, that he would walk straight and narrow and never waver from following God. That's what we would think. If you didn't know the story and you were hearing it for the first time, you would think, man, Noah is described as this righteous man that has the grace of God and followed the Lord when nobody else did. Now he's going to get to start fresh. Man, Noah's going to do it right. It's not what happens. The very next thing we read is that he drank of the wine and became drunk. He plants a vineyard and makes wine from the vineyard and becomes drunk. Now, the Bible makes it very clear that, and I want you to pay really close attention to this, because I don't think Christians sometimes take this very seriously, and I want to deal with this, so I need you to pay attention. The Bible makes it very clear that getting drunk is a sin against God. And God takes it very seriously. Getting drunk from alcohol is a sin against God, and God takes it very seriously. Now, the Bible never prohibits drinking. Jesus drank wine. Okay? It's not grape juice. It was wine. The first miracle was turning water into wine. But God is very clear in Scripture that getting drunk is a sin. Now, some people may ask, why is getting drunk such a horrible sin against God? Well, we find the answer in the writings of Paul. Paul, in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 18, says this. Listen very carefully. Okay, I need you to think about this. Do not be drunk with wine. Okay, and that would include any alcoholic beverage. Do not be drunk with alcohol, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit. Now, I need you to think with me. Okay, use your brains and think. Don't be drunk with wine. Be filled with the Spirit. Paul is saying, he's comparing. Don't be drunk with wine. Be filled with the Spirit. When you are drunk, what are you? You are out of control, correct? When you get drunk, you are out of control. You are no longer in your right mind. People have done the stupidest, sinful, most wicked things possible when they are controlled by alcohol. So Paul is saying, do not be drunk with wine. Don't get drunk, because when you're drunk, you're not in control of yourself. Instead, he says, be filled with the Spirit. Do you know why being drunk is such an egregious sin? Because if God is not in control of your life, you're rebelling against Him. So if somebody gets drunk, they are actively rebelling against God, and they're saying to God, I don't want you to control me right now. I want this glass of beverage to control me. Sin, it is an egregious sin against God. It is a very serious thing. And I don't think Christians take it as serious as they should. Noah commits an egregious sin. He rebels, and instead of God controlling his life, he allows himself to get drunk. And then it says this, because we have an insight into what happens when Noah gets drunk. It's a perfect example of being out of control. When Noah gets drunk, he's not letting the Lord lead him. He's not letting the Lord plan his path. He has let something from earth take control of him. And here's the consequence of it. Noah is no longer in his right mind, and he strips himself naked and passes out. Now, the Bible says that let me get the exact language that it says here in the ESV. He lay uncovered in his tent. But the Hebrew actually should probably be translated, he uncovered himself. So this is something that Noah did to himself, because he gets drunk, he's not in his right mind, he strips himself naked, and is so drunk that he passes out. This is not the behavior of a man who has chosen righteousness at this moment. You know what I learned from this? When I read that, you know what happens? Red flags go off for me. Bells and whistles go off. And here's what jumps out at me when I read that. Anybody can fall into sin. And everybody does. Anybody can fall into sin, and everybody does. See, we like to put people on pedestals. For instance, Noah. Of all people, we wouldn't think Noah would do this. Or here's what happens in churches. We would never think our pastors would do things that are wrong. Yeah, I know that we do out here in the chairs, but not Neil. I mean, Neil, you're helping lead us and you teach us. Man, you wouldn't. I have news for you. Not only do I sin, but I will sin again. And I will blow it. And if you're looking to me to lead you down a path of righteousness perfectly, you are looking at the wrong person. Jesus is the only one who's done that. Anybody can fall. And so we've got, listen, in football, and I only played football in junior high, but I know enough about football to know this. This phrase is used a lot, keep your head on a swivel. Here's what that means. That means that when you're on that field, you better keep your head on a swivel looking. You better be looking left and right and behind you, because wherever you're not looking, guess what's going to happen? You'll be crushed. So if you're not paying attention, right, and the play's happening over there, and you're just kind of relaxing, and all of a sudden somebody, bam, nails you, your head was not on a swivel, you weren't paying attention, you just got laid out. And that's exactly what happens with sin. We're not paying attention, maybe we start relaxing a little bit. We start taking it easy, maybe we're not on guard like we should, we're not ready like we should, and then boom, we fall. Because we weren't ready. We weren't on God. We didn't have our head on a swivel. So Noah falls. So keep watch. Guard your heart. Mind your ways so that you do not fall. Second thing is the sin of Ham. Now, we're told that Ham is the father of Canaan and that he sees the nakedness of his father. Now, I read that and I think, okay, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? I mean, maybe his father's drunk, his father's naked, Ham's outside. They knew that his dad was getting drunk, but they didn't know that he took off all his clothes. And so Ham just walks in and says, oh, whoa, Dad, okay, our father has humiliated himself. He is buck naked and drunk in his tent, and it's wrong, and I need to go tell my brothers what's happened so that we can take care of that. The context lets us know that is not what happened. Ham walks in on his father, and instead of honoring his father and respecting his father in a mocking way, he goes to his brothers to make fun of his dad. That is why he gets cursed. It's not because he accidentally saw his dad naked. There's no sin in that. It is that he sees the sin of his father and he mocks it. He sees the sin of his father and he goes to his brothers to make a mockery of his father, and his brothers do the right thing. What do his brothers do? They walk in backwards. They put they stand with a blanket on their shoulders and they walk in backwards. And they kneel down and cover up the nakedness of their father in order to be respectful and to honor their father, even in the midst of their father's sin. They're going to respect their father even in the midst of their father's sin. Ham, on the other hand, mocks his father. Proverbs 14 verse 9 says this: "It is a fool who makes a mockery of sin." You hear that? It is a fool who makes a mockery of sin. And this is exactly what Ham does. Again, this is bad because it's an utter failure to honor his father and to demonstrate family love. If he really loved his father the way he should, he would have immediately wanted to deal with this. I got to cover my father up. I don't want for him to be dishonored. I don't want for my father to be embarrassed. I don't want for my father to have shame. And so I'm going to come and I'm going to do ultimately what his two brothers did, and I'm going to cover up the nakedness of my father. James Montgomery Boyce died in, I think, 2001. He was a great pastor and author. He said this: "The one thing that is worse than committing a specific sin." Okay, so right off the bat, something is worse than committing a sin. All right? Something is worse than committing a specific sin. Here's what he says: "The one thing that is worse than committing a specific sin is the devilish delight of finding it out and then reveling in the sin of others." The thing that's worse than committing a specific sin is finding out that somebody committed a specific sin and then delighting in their sin and rejoicing that they sinned and taking delight and reveling in the sin that somebody committed. That's what Ham does. Was Noah's sin bad?
No.
Not a trick question. Was Noah's sin bad?
Yes.
Yes. Was Ham's worse? Yes. Yeah, it was worse. Finally, the prophecy of Noah. At some point, Noah wakes up. That's what it says in verse 24. When Noah awoke from his wine, it means he's no longer passed out. All right? His drunkenness has worn off, and he finds out what his youngest son had done to him. And he's very upset. And he's going to pronounce a prophecy relating to Ham and to his descendants. Now, this is the most important part of the message as far as you really gotta pay attention here. All right? This is some cool stuff. All right, when I was your age, I didn't even taught this. So, listen, this is some really cool stuff. So here's what his prophecy, he prophesies about all three of his boys, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. First prophecy is about Ham. Verse 25. Cursed be Canaan. Now wait a minute. Canaan is not Ham's name. Who did we already find out in the text? Who is Canaan? Canaan is Ham's son. So Noah says, cursed be this son of yours, Ham. Cursed be Canaan. Now, if you know Jewish history, okay, which you may know some Jewish history, you may not know some Jewish history. I'm going to give you some Jewish history, so pay really close attention. And I just want to say, guys, listen, let me just say this. I hear stories about what other people get taught on, what other teenagers get taught on Wednesday nights. And I promise you, if you go to a lot of your friends tomorrow that go to church and you ask them if they talk about Jewish history, the answer is going to be no. Because Jewish history isn't fun, and Jewish history isn't exciting. Okay, I made you 2 videos. That's about exciting as I can get. I'm going to give you some stuff tonight that's right there in Scripture that is going, man, it's fantastic stuff. But you got to pay attention. All right, it's history. Now, in Jewish history, what is the name of the promised land? It's Canaan. Now, wait a minute. Ham's son is named Canaan. The promised land is named Canaan. Where do you think Canaan and his descendants moved to? They moved to the promised land. And the land gets named after Canaan. Now, if we know something else about Jewish history, do the Canaanites, the descendants of Canaan, do the Canaanites worship Yahweh? No, they are all pagan, false idol worshipers. All right? So Canaan, Ham's son, goes to this land that was promised to Abraham called the Promised Land, and he there, his progeny, his descendants, his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they spread out all over this area, and they begin to worship false gods. So much so that when the children of Israel get out of Egypt, they get the 10 Commandments, they wander in the wilderness for 40 years, then they come to Canaan, and when they get into Canaan, you know what God says to Israel? You've got to go to war with these people. And under the leadership of Joshua, Israel wipes out almost all of the Canaanites. That whole story has its beginning right here. That whole history has its beginning right here when Noah says to Ham, cursed be your son Canaan. And let me tell you something. When you don't worship God, you're cursed. When you don't worship the one true living God and you worship false spiritual gods, you are cursed. And there's nothing worse. No worse place you can be in. Curse is an appropriate word to use. Now Noah is going to bless Shem. Actually, he blesses Yahweh, the God of Shem. Look at that. Listen. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Now, I saw that and I went, whoa, okay, wait a minute. I thought he was blessing his sons. Right? He curses Ham. He's going to bless Japheth. But with Shem, he says, blessed be Yahweh, the God of Shem. Now, pay very close attention. Pay very close attention. Do you know who the descendants of Shem are? They're the Israelites. Okay? They're the Israelites. Who does God make a covenant with? Does God make a covenant with Ham or Japheth? No, he enters into a covenant with Shem's family. right? The descendants of Shem. That's why it says, blessed be the Yahweh, the God of Shem, because God's going to enter into a covenant with the descendants of Shem, and they're going to be Israelites. All right? So check this out. You've got the descendants of Ham, who are the Canaanites. You have the descendants of Shem, which are the Israelites. Okay? And we already see that the Israelites go in and they wipe out the descendants of Shem. But then we have one other group here. Oh, by the way, let me just real quick do this. All the Old Testament is this story leading up to Jesus, okay? The first time we see a prophecy in the Bible about Jesus is when God says to Eve, you're going to have a child, and that child is going to crush the head of the serpent. Okay? That was Jesus. That was Jesus. All right? Then we know that the line of the Messiah is going to come through Seth. Not Cain, not Abel, but Seth, Adam and Eve's son. And now from Seth, we get to Noah, and then Noah has 3 boys, and God's going to narrow it down again. And now he's going to say, and it's going to come from Shem. And then Shem, we get Abraham, we get Isaac, we get Jacob. Jacob's name changes to Israel. You with me? Mm-hmm. You all with me?
Yeah.
All right. Now, verse 27. May God enlarge Japheth. That doesn't mean may he get overweight. May God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem and let Canaan be his servant. Now, guys, I'm telling you, this is so cool. Who are the descendants of Ham? Canaanites. Who are the descendants of Shem? Israelites. Who are the descendants of Japheth? You are. You know that? You are. The Gentile nations of the world come from Japheth. So Ham have the Canaanites. Well, the Canaanites all get wiped out. Shem is the Israelites. Japheth are the Gentile nations of the world. And unless somebody in here is Jewish that I don't know about, all of us in this room come from Japheth. Now, here's what this means. That means this prophecy is about you. Now, that gives me chills. That freaks me out. Because I'm like, hold on. So you're telling me that when this happened thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, Noah, through the inspiration of God, makes a prophecy that involves me. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now, what's the prophecy? The prophecy is, may the Lord enlarge you. Now, let me ask you a question. Has that come to pass? How many Gentile nations are there? And then you have one Israelite nation. So God has enlarged Japheth to where almost the entire world is filled with Japheth's descendants, except for Jewish people. That's crazy. Now, check this out. It says, and you will dwell in the tents of Shem. Now, hang on. You will dwell in the tents of Shem. Now, that can't be physical, because that doesn't make any sense, right? We are not dwelling in the tents of Israelites physically. That doesn't make any sense. But if we take this and think spiritually about it, it's going to make some sense. Let me read this, because I don't want to jack it all up. So listen. We, as Gentiles, have been made the true Israel. We have been brought into, listen, we've been brought into the true Israel, which is Jesus. We've been brought into the tent, so to speak, of the Israelites, so that now, spiritually, we are children of God. We are the true Israel through Jesus Christ. So when it says, may God enlarge Japheth, that means there's going to be tons of Gentile nations all over the world. But all these Gentile nations, that God is going to take people from these Gentile nations, and they are going to come and dwell in the tents of the Israelites, and that is made possible through Jesus Christ. Jesus is going to make it possible for you to become part of the true Israel. to be a child of Abraham. Not by bloodline, but by the line of Jesus. Now, guys, my mind is blown right now. And I know this is some deep, heavy stuff, but if you can get your mind around what we're talking about, this is crazy. Because all of this happened. So the only way Noah makes a prophecy like this is if God is prophesying through him. If God has revealed to him what he should say and how he should go about it. So let me end this way. God was, through Noah, giving us his story. Listen to me. God was giving us his story. When we read these curses and these blessings, we are reading the story. We're reading the history and story of the world. I want you to think about that. The entire story is right here in a couple verses. We've got the Canaanites, we've got the Israelites, and we've got the Gentiles. The Canaanites get wiped out by Israel. Israel is preserved so that Jesus Christ comes from Israel, and Jesus dies for Gentile people and Israelite people, and Gentile people are brought into the true Israel to be the family of God forever and ever and ever. And let me say this. Do you know that when God prophesies something or God tells us the future, it's not because God looks into the future and sees what's going to happen and go, okay, let me see what's going to happen in the future. Okay, now let me tell you. When God tells people the future, he's telling them what he's going to do. Okay? He's not telling them what he sees down the road. He's telling them what he's going to do down the road. And God, through Noah right here, told the whole world what he's going to do. And guys, he's done it. He sent Jesus. Jesus did it. He did step right on the head of the serpent and crush him on the cross. Crushed him. And now we, descendants of Japheth, have been brought into the tents of Shem. And we are part of Israel. We are part of the family of God. Hey, by grace or by works? By grace. You didn't earn it. God did it for you.